Oh, you gotta laugh, right?
How y'all
Right.
feeling?
Good.
Good.
Good. Well,
Yes.
I just
Nice to
felt
be
like
back. Little
I know.
one, and then we're done for a little bit. It's kind of nice getting it all
Yeah, well,
together.
that's never, I don't know about that for sure. I know that right now I am being all like out of shape about the holiday season coming. So it's just kind of crazy. But I do want to say that I am so excited about in general the last almost 6 years we've been doing this show and celebrating our last one with everybody in the room. And we just decided to wrap some presents up today as a guest and just deliver on four great guests and area topics. So before we open that show, I like just to see what's on your mind. Um, right now? Like, what is the currently, what do you want to talk about?
So I'll go first. Can I go
Yeah,
first? Can I
please
go
do.
first? Can I go first?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, so what I am so excited about right now is Jasmine Crockett running for Senate. And let me tell you why. I
Okay.
think that folks would ordinarily say, and me too, would say, oh, Jesus, are we going to really try to do this? But here's why I
Mhm.
think we can do this. I remember when we had guests on before who came from Texas and they told us we don't have a registration problem, we have a turnout problem. And what I think is when you think about the numbers, and remember, Steve Phillips always tells us this, that you got to know the numbers, you got to know the data. There's a 40% Hispanic population in Texas, 40% white, 12% black, the highest black population in the country. And so if you sort of put that together and think about building a coalition where people can really get excited about someone who is authentic and fearless and can really talk about the issues and tell the right stories, I think that Texas can do it. So there you go. That's what I'm excited
If you
about.
think about how close, whoa. I
Yo,
mean,
it's
Beto
yeah.
came
Whoa,
very
whoa.
close. Obviously, that was for the House, but it was very close. And to watch that happen in red Texas,
Well, right. So
kind of
James
right?
Tallarico, my boyfriend's running over there. So
Yeah,
I
your
feel like
boyfriend's running.
I think both my girlfriend and boyfriend are running in that seat. And what I think what's interesting when we talk about Leah today from Indivisible, their whole strategy, this primary strategy we're going to get to. But I think what we're seeing is this excitement, even in Virginia, people stepping up to run. With David Pepper here talking about running everywhere and what this means for democracy. And I think voters are getting more and more engaged when we talk about turnout. I know I've heard like Charlie Sykes was on a podcast kind of downplaying we got to be careful. We're running these too progressive stuff. That whole crap starts again, that we need to be more centric stuff. So, what are you thinking about that when we talk about picking candidates? Let the voters pick. What do you thought? What
I'm
are
feeling pretty good right now for two reasons.
yeah,
One is that, unlike the rest of the country, Virginia is one of the states that got a little
right.
dry run this past fall. So
Oh, yeah,
we are more ahead, I think, in heading into these midterms because we have our ground game
right.
and we are not letting up thanks to people like Leah. And we are staying, we are always saying grassroots organizes 365. So we're still at it and we're not going to stop. We're not going to gear up in August. We're already geared up. So
Right.
that's fantastic for us. Great news. And then the other thing is that we are, I don't want to pull out the negativity. I want to try to spin this as much as possible
Yeah.
to keep people engaged and find different ways for them to get engaged. And I think that's another big lesson that we've learned. I feel like we're coming into the midterms really strong.
Yeah. Well, with all these votes, so I think Republicans revealing themselves with the healthcare votes. I mean, I'm just watching people at my own family premiums going up. So the reality bites is really happening, which I'm excited where we're ending the show with Rachel Biddelkofer is the voters are seeing it. And in real time, these people are voting against us. The Republicans are like really voting against the Americans' quality of life. And let's just say Venezuela, hello, military dropping on boats, seizing this stuff. I mean, turning our backs on NATO allies. So there's a lot to unpack here in the sense of where we'll be in the next year, which is kind
Right.
of scary. So, and
Right.
that's,
And you were talking about, and also you're talking about this discussion about moderates and progressives, right? This is not
yeah,
a new discussion for any of us. We're quite familiar with it at this point. I
yes,
think that, right. And I think that different approaches are playing differently in the country. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that from some of our guests today, in
yeah,
terms of balancing that out and watching Mike Johnson lose his grip on
yeah,
the Congress is kind of fun. I'm kind of giggling, a
yeah.
little
I
inside
am
little
too, and
giggle.
I think woohoo, and I think they kicked him off a grinder. I think that he was mad about that. But I'm going to give Fennell, our last word before we open up the show. And so what's on your, this is the last word for our thing, and what's on your mind,
Yeah.
Fennell?
So two things that I don't want to lose. We talk about them later. I'm really excited about the idea of how we talk about the Supreme Court more.
Yes.
'Cause I think that's going to be a really important discussion for us to start to have. And I think why this is so important, and it goes with everything else, is we do have to tell good stories about what's to come, but we also have to be sure to talk about the monsters. And now we have proof of what the
Proof.
monsters are and who they are. So I think as we start to wrap stories around, tell how they really affect people, show how they affect people, show how the Supreme Court makes that happen, I think we can get somewhere.
Well, I said that I want to talk to Leah Greenberg about this. I want to send 7 million postcards to the Supreme Court. I think we have to shine the light of really where the injustice is coming from and the billionaires backing it. And this is really, Robert's Court is going to go down in history as really the ones that set up the destroying of democracy. So I'm so glad you all are here on the Ho 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 special holiday show. If you're new to the Power Lunch, we're so glad you're here. And put your stuff in the chat about who's naughty or nice. Joe Kurtz, a patron, sent hers in. Please put her list in the chat. Thank you, Joe, for sending that in. We'll have some special spins of the wheel for patrons today. We're so excited for that support. So I just want to say for this last year, if you have been a patron, thank you for putting that Tiny Tim in our cup. We're so excited. And you're on the Friday Power Lunch today. It is December 12th, and we are the gals. Fennell Norton hosts, Carrie Short, Catherine White. We've been the hostesses with the mostesses all year, and we're going to continue this conversation across Virginia, across the nation. We're glad you're in the room, and we love to make politics fun. Use the chat to communicate. We love it. We keep it open. If you're nasty or naughty, you get the boot out, and then you're just sent back with the Grinch in that little cave, and you don't get anything. Maybe a friend later. Rules of the road. Try to be friendly and supportive in there. And stick around for the after chat. Today, new show, new way. We're going to go all the way to 1:30 because we have guests, and we want to talk to them. And we also want to make sure that we leave our 15 minutes with our beloved community and be able to talk to everybody. So we're so glad about that. I'm just going to tell you who's on the show. I know that's why you're here, but Tom Bonyer's going to be here. We're going to talk to our data guru. He is the CEO of Terra Group and also the senior advisor at Target Smart. He is our favorite guru. And David Pepper, Ohio, go Buckeyes. I love David. He has been just fighting for democracy as long as we've known. We learned so much from his whiteboards. He's a lawyer, writer, political activist, former elected official. We're so excited to have him all the way from Ohio. And he's going to talk a lot today about what we can do, how this big picture of democracy. And Leah Greenberg, oh my goodness. Let me tell you, in history, when we talk about when we look back in history and we see who has made a difference, when we study in the history books, Leah Greenberg is going to be one of those women champions for the fight that she has put with Indivisible and her co-founder, Ezra. This is such exciting to have her in the room. And lastly, Rachel Bitecofer, Reality Bites. We love Rachel. She is also, her book, Hit 'em Where It Hurts. Her stuff has informed how we hit back, how we think, and actually she's been ignored by a lot of the male pundits and the big wigs on the big legacy TV, but not by us in the grassroots. So let us get going over. Carrie, you're up, and I'm so excited. Let's play some jingles and let's bring Leah in and let you take it over.
So I'm so glad we get to kick it off with Leah Greenberg. She is the co-executive director and co-founder of Indivisible. Many of us know her. She was at the Women's Summit. She's been on the show before. Welcome, Leah.
Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You've been so busy lately. We're grateful for it. We wanted to start the whole interview off today with a giant thank you, because you are on everyone's nice list. We are grateful. I think Catherine's absolutely right. We mentioned it in the green room a little bit, that Indivisible guide. Let me tell you, when we talk about history, there was a turning point in 2017 when we were organizing right after the Women's March. When that thing came out, suddenly we felt like we were validated, we had a plan, and that we were something really real. And I think that really did that for all of us. And you have just continued to be, a leader for this movement. And the first question I really wanted to ask you is about building a movement. Did you ever think it would come to this? And what has been your sort of your guideposts in building this movement? Because every time you and Ezra talk, you sound very intentional that this is all part of building a movement.
Wow. Well, so first of all, no, I absolutely had no idea what I was getting into when we put the guide online. We thought that the most likely thing that was going to happen was we were going to get fired from our jobs at the time. We were super surprised when it went viral, and we were even more amazed when we realized people were really not just reading it, but putting it into action, forming groups, adopting the umbrella indivisible frame, and that we had just kind of like launched ourselves into the middle of this incredible, amazing, organic swell of people who are coming together to fight for America. And it's been just like a profound honor ever since. I think like our guiding principles are really about one, a very deep belief that change is not going to come from Washington. It is going to come to Washington, driven by people all over the country who basically decided that politics is too important to be left to the political professionals and took matters into their own hands. And then two, that like we should really like operate as a movement collectively of folks who are bought in on and share common strategies. And that means being really like transparent, respectful, trying to be really strategy forward with folks about like what can we achieve together rather than treating people in kind of like a top down, these are your marching orders kind of way. Because I think so often that's the challenge with electeds, with with the parties, with different institutions, is kind of like not respecting the extraordinary level of capability, creativity, leadership that folks are capable of across the country if they are trusted and invested in and supported to lead. And so those are I think our core principles, is like we just believe that there are an incredible number of people around the country who have extraordinary capacity if they are asked to step forward and lead.
I would have absolutely said your superpower is coalition building, having worked with Indivisible as COVA Coalition's a chapter. And so I would have absolutely said that. And speaking to that, because we are all activist leaders on this call, we're all involved in some way. Some of us are holding together coalitions as best we can right now. Leadership. I'm just curious, how many people are now on staff at Indivisible? It's just incredible. And I'd also like to know, what was your biggest challenge in managing the staff at Indivisible and how that's working?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we had a lot of challenges early on where it was like, we were small and getting bigger pretty fast. We went from no people on staff in 2017 to about 80 people on staff by the end of 2018. That kind of rapid expansion is really challenging for like anyone and any organization. And I think, the process of going from startup to mature organization comes with some like teenager growing pains in the middle where you're really like you're trying to figure out like how do we evolve into, from kind of a duocracy where everybody's grabbing everything to like, no, we've got roles, we've got jobs, we've got promotional structures, all of the things that actually like give people what they need to thrive and succeed in the workplace. So that I think was one of the big challenges. Right now, we are at 87 people, and we got a few open positions. And we're in this moment where we're really trying as best we can to support a movement that has, as best we can exploded. We are looking at uh, dozens of new indivisible groups every week, like over 150% more indivisible groups have formed or reignited since 2024. Just an incredible grassroots surge of energy from people who either have not previously been involved or have gotten back into the fight. And it's just an extraordinary honor. And also, we come in every day and we're just trying to keep up with the incredible capability and power that is flourishing across the country.
Right. Well, question about what went well this year. What do you think went well?
Let me say, I believe, we're closing the year out. Yesterday, I think, was this profound demonstration of what it looks like when someone tries to consolidate authoritarian power and they're caught by the pro-democracy movement, by the weight of their own unpopularity, by the backlash, and the wheels start coming off the bus. You saw this in Indiana, right? Where Donald Trump pulled out every possible stop to try to bully Indiana Republicans into redistricting the state. And they were just like, no. And it wasn't close. It was like the majority of the caucus, the Republican caucus, said no. And that is a demonstration that fundamentally their project over the course of this year, the idea that they were going to do this race to consolidate power and kind of crush alternate sources of power within their own party, within civil society, within business, within media, all of that, it has failed. Like it has failed.
Right.
They have not
It
succeeded.
is, it's so great to see this because I do think you all, one of the things that you're helping us with is the running these protests and running this pressure campaign. You guys are just kind of looking at now boycotts and financial pressure, which is not something that we've all been using to the best effectiveness as a movement. So I see that you guys are doing more of that, but you can see it's giving not, don't want to say a permission structure, but it is giving them a little cover to start breaking away. And you guys have said that all along. So you must feel really good about that.
Here's what I feel. I feel like this was a year where basically every elite institution at the beginning of the year started with this frame of like, well, Donald Trump won. He's inevitable. He's going to be the dominant political figure for the foreseeable future. We just got to go along to get along, enable, collaborate, do whatever we got to do. Most elite institutions went in that direction, and regular people all over the country said, fuck no. We're going to continue to be a democracy. We are going to protect our neighbors. We are going to reject this like onslaught of hatred and attacks, and we're going to demand something better. And we have collectively like yanked the political system back in a really serious way over the course of this year. And so I don't know. I think it's going to take a little time for it to really resonate. And I don't want to in any way suggest that our work is over. This is like step one in the process of taking back and reforming our democracy. But I hope everybody here feels extraordinarily proud of the work that we have collectively done to stave off authoritarianism this year and to build towards something better because it is historic.
And I really feel like this year we were a little rudderless at the beginning. I don't feel like we all felt like we weren't getting good leadership from the party. Some would say we're still not. It's starting to coalesce. But I felt like you had an agenda from the beginning. It was to start talking about remaking the party, start talking about reforming the Supreme Court, as you mentioned, stop making things up to norms and customs, and let's start codifying the way Congress is supposed to run and the accountability structure for the president, and putting this tremendous pressure on them. It helped us. I think it was good to see that someone was setting an agenda out there. What am I missing? What are we looking for aside from the midterms? Because we talk about that all the time. But aside from that, looking ahead, agenda for 2026.
Well, I've got a few different things. The first is we do have this primary season, and that is the opportunity to shape the kind of Democratic Party we want to see in the future. If we want people who wake up every day thinking, how can I fight back? We have to choose those people. Right? Like we have to actually shift the party so that you get the kinds of fighters that we don't have to constantly call and beg not to fold on the next thing. That's one piece of this. The next piece is all the way through the election and after, we have to be super aware that they are going to constantly try to rig the rules and sabotage. That is, we're going to be playing whack-a-mole all year through with different efforts at the local and national level to rig the rules because they know that they are going to lose a free and fair election and they are going to do everything they can to avoid that outcome. And we also have to build through mobilizations, through disruption, through creative actions, the kind of capacity capable of not only winning the election, but then enforcing the results afterwards, because we do have to be real that this is not a guy who intends to go quietly when he loses in a massive wave, which we will collectively generate over the course of this year.
Well, question though about pressure, because we are pretty familiar with after they're elected, following policies. We have the Virginia Grassroots Coalition is amazing at helping us track legislation and issues that are important to the grassroots. We are on that. That's great. We have that resource here in Virginia. And I know other states do too. But looking at beyond legislation, we are talking about party policy. Mm-hmm. We're at this weird crossroads because we are grassroots leaders. We feel like we want to hold people accountable, but at the same time, we need respect. We need to be invited to the table. Where is that balance of holding them accountable, but then being invited back? I don't want to kowtow to them, but I am trying to reform the party, but I'm outside. So where are we in that? And what words of advice do you have for activists who are kind of in the middle?
Yeah. Well, I actually think that these are two sides of the same coin because I think it's possible to talk about this in terms of access, but it's also possible to talk about this in terms of, are you a player who electeds have to factor into their calculations because you have a power base, because you can offer them something supportive, and because you have opinions about how they should act, right? Every elected, like even the really good ones, the way they stay in office is that they are constantly running this calculation of, do I have to worry about these people? Do I have to worry that these people could be a problem for me in the future? And if so, I have to take them a little more seriously than the people that I don't have to worry about. And I feel like a lot of Democrats earlier this year, in many different ways, gave us some very clear indications that they had put us in the I don't have to worry about you bucket. And that meant that they didn't have to take opinions seriously when we were calling and saying, we need you to fight back. We need you to stand up. We need you to come out for Supreme Court expansion, to give an obvious example of a place we have to go that we don't have the Democratic Party yet. Um, and so when it comes to kind of this question of like, how do I both get taken seriously, get treated as an important part of the overarching political equilibrium, I think part of that is being willing to say, mostly we use our power to support you. And in some cases, we may not, right? Like that's actually part of how you get put back in the bucket of, I have to take those people seriously when they're mad at me, is the possibility that that might have consequences.
Right. That's a great point. I know we had a particularly low moment this summer doing an event with some electeds. Well, it was this fall, and some stuff happened. We don't want to go into it. But the bottom line is, a friend told me, why do you care about electeds who are blowing you off and not coming to your event or not inviting you to the table or not, why do you care? You need to take the indivisible route and place yourself with your own credibility. You're outside the system, be proud, and put that pressure on from the outside. If they're not going to let you in, then you put the pressure on from the outside. And I thought that I had kind of forgotten that was a definite early model of yours. Now you work closely with electeds. I get it now. I know you were talking about starting to have some guests on your Thursday huddle that you do with indivisible chapters. But I guess, setting that expectation now and kind of reframing what it really means to be a grassroots activist, that no, it's okay. And you know what? We don't have to be invited. Let's just wait for them to beg to come. Right.
And I think it's just always being clear about the difference between access and power, right? Because access is not power. Power is power. Power is the ability to make them do things you want to do versus like the ability to have a conversation with them directly, right? And I think we try to pursue all of those, right? Like we want to have conversations with people. We want to be in dialogue, even when we disagree with folks, like we do want to be at the table. But the way that we get there, given the fact that we're independent actors, is by having some meaningful power base of our own. So it's just always going to be a balance.
And with all of the chapters and groups of Indivisible all over the country, you definitely have a very strong power base. You have built an amazing resource for us. So gratitude to you, definitely.
I thank you. And also Indivisibles have built it. I gotta say, like everything that we are collectively is the product of an extraordinary collective movement. And, we never forget that.
Yes, thank you. Nice, very great. It's so great to have you on, and so much for making time. You've been so busy. So thank you very much for being here. Everybody, give it up for Leah Greenberg. Little jingles. Let's go. Thank you, Leah.
Hope you can stay for the after chat.
Yeah, the after chat. So let's, Carrie.
We're going to bring up Tom because, you've been so excited about this whole week.
Got to play a little song. Get Tom in to rock around the tree with us. Thanks, Tom, for being here. I'll let you go.
So listen, I just have to say this for Catherine. She's been so excited about this week. She's been worried about everybody. I was blue yesterday, but I am not blue today. I'm really excited today because, Tom, I'm always so excited to get to talk to you. So how about that?
Same here, Fennell. And I'm excited to be now the opening act for the Sassy Grannies. It's an honor.
You do get to be the opening act, but first of all, Catherine was really deliberate about a naughty and nice. And so before we get started, did you think about your naughty and nice? So you can just give me that right off the bat.
I did think about it, and I there's so much naughty this year. Can we agree on that? I don't even want to focus on them because there's just many of them, and we're all well aware of them, and I'm kind of sick of hearing about them. There were some nice. Y'all were talking about the Indiana Republicans. I'm glad that for once some Republicans did the right thing. Let's be real, they only did it because it was about their political expediency, probably not what was actually right. But look, so my nice will be, everyone in this community. I'm always so happy when I get to come here. I always feel energized, like you, Fennell. It's like you can be in a bad mood and you get around this team and you feel better. And especially like what we're going to talk about with the election results and what we've learned from that, knowing that this group here was such a huge part of making that happen. That's number one on my nice list. All of y'all and many people who maybe can't be here today, but have been a part of this community throughout, not just this year, but in all the work leading up to that. Y'all are my nice list for today and for this holiday.
So that makes me feel really good. So guys can all just, I'm happy because Tom is one of my favorites, and so I'm happy to be on his nice list. But for those of you who may not know, Tom Bonier is the president and CEO of Target Smart, and he is our data guy, and so he knows everything about all the numbers, and we just get smarter every time we talk to him. And so, Tom, that's where I want to start today. Virginia was really, honest, it was historic, but there has to be some information that we need to know about those races in both Virginia and New Jersey. So I thought it would just be great if you just open with that. Tell us what we should know about those races.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that have jumped out at me as we've dug into the data, we dug into the voter file, we're learning more about who voted. Like, we start with the top line, and everyone is aware of this, but I think it's important to be loud about this and to continue to stress this, is that this was not just a win for the Democratic candidates, the statewide candidates in Virginia, in Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, and state legislative candidates, as y'all have talked about, having this historic majority in Virginia. Also in New Jersey, by the way, the biggest Democratic majority in decades in New Jersey. A lot of people have looked at what happened. Republicans have tried to trivialize this or marginalize it or say, well, it was what we expected was going to happen in this election. It was only because of the fact that there's a Republican in the White House, and Democrats are the party out of power. So, this isn't something that Republicans should be concerned about or should be taken as a sign of massive disapproval for Donald Trump and what he's doing. Well, that ain't the case. A lot of people, they tried to make the case that, well, this is just like what happened in 2017. When we dig into the numbers and the historic nature of these margins, and again, I won't repeat all of this. I'll talk a little bit just about sort of how this happened, because I think that's the most impressive part. Biggest increases in turnout we saw were among younger voters. We have more detailed data in New Jersey than we have in Virginia at this moment, but we have a lot of detail across the board. When you look at the college campus precincts in Virginia, that was where you saw not just the biggest increases in turnout, but the biggest increases in Democratic vote share as well. Why I'm excited about that is we know that was a weak spot for us as Democrats and progressives in 2024, where we lost a lot of ground with younger voters, voters of color, especially Latino voters. Well, the good news from New Jersey and Virginia is that was all where we saw the biggest gains in vote share. Now, that's not something I think we can take for granted and assume that these voters are just going to be with us in perpetuity. But when we're looking at what happened, to me, that's what jumps out the most, is these big increases in turnout and big swings back to Democrats, especially among younger voters and Latino voters in both of those states. So, I'd say that's the number one takeaway. We can talk about other things for sure, but if we're going to take one thing and say, well, why this matters, it's because our margins were far bigger, not just in 2024, but these previous, 2021, 2017, these prior elections. It's much bigger margins.
So, Tom, let me ask this question, and you might not have the data, and if you don't, we'll move on and I'll go to something else. So I want to talk about the margins, and I want to talk about who made up those margins. And you talk about young voters and many of them who came back. But as we think about some of the races that are going to happen in 26, some people are talking about, well, we should go and maybe we should court more Republican voters, because maybe they're thinking that's who make up some of these margins that happened in this last race in 25. Based on what you know, when is that a good strategy and when is it not?
Yeah. I mean, this is the sort of time honored argument of, in some way, persuasion versus mobilization. Though I think, and we've talked about this before too, in a way, it's a false choice. We don't have the luxury of doing one or the other. We have to do all the things. And I think mobilization is truly persuasion. And so, I have my own biases here. I'm not going to skirt your question because I do think I do have an answer to it. But part of it depends on how we're defining Republicans. If we're talking about some voters who maybe they voted for Trump last time around because they were upset about the economy, they were upset about inflation, they just thought they were voting for a change. I think those voters, what we saw in the election results last month proved that there are a lot of fruitful targets. We did see a lot of those voters who maybe voted for Donald Trump last time around or for Republicans down ballot swung back heavily to Democratic candidates. And you saw a lot of mobilization successes, voters who didn't vote in 2024 at all coming out and voting, who maybe have never voted for a Republican. And so in the end, we have to do both. Is there a big universe of core Republicans who have voted traditionally Republican in every election who are likely to be fruitful targets for Democrats? It depends. It depends on the state, the race, the district, the candidate, the issues at stake. There is the potential for a substantial blue wave election next year, which means we should be reaching a little bit further into that persuasion bag, so to speak, to be looking at communicating with the voters who maybe haven't voted with us in the past. But we have to remember, if I was going to prioritize mobilization among those Democrats who have been disillusioned and stayed home, and then these unaffiliated voters, of which there are just more independents and unaffiliated voters in this country than there ever have been. These are voters who, you and I talked about this around the election last year and after the election at the summit, these voters who are these lower political information voters who exist in different information bubbles, and we need to do more to reach out to those voters as well.
So what I'll say is I was doing a little bit of research, and what I found is, and this is why your media buyer platform is going to be so important, is what I found out is that during the last election in 24, they were very specific about targeting those voters with very specific messaging, which means, and they said, and frankly, they said, Democrats are talking, and I'm making this number up, to 1 million people, and we're talking to 60,000 in certain spaces because we want to talk very specifically to these voters. And I do see your MVP as part of the way to do that, to be very targeted about who we talk to and how we talk to them. What do you think about that? Am I thinking about that right?
Yeah, yes, I believe so. In the end, we have to do both, right? Like we have to be louder in the general quote culture, right? And make sure that our message is out there through as many channels as possible. But when we're thinking about our limited, precious campaign resources and how we're targeting voters, you mentioned our media buying platform, and I appreciate that. It's a tool that we launched over the last year to democratize access to these digital spaces, so people can go and they can serve their own advertising to targeted voters. I want to lift up one example. I've used this a few times since the election just because I'm proud of what they've done. I think it's a great example of how our platform can be used to do exactly what you're talking about. When I was at the summit, this group's wonderful summit last summer, I guess it was June of last year, which was honestly for me a turning point of like hearing the energy and enthusiasm. And I was down in the dumps up to that point as being such a hard year and being surrounded by that energy. I thought, oh no, wait, we can do this year. And I talked to Lindley Thorne, who's someone who's been, I think on at least a few of your programs here. I was introduced to Lindley, Rural Ground Game, for those of you who don't know her, and introduced to the work that they were doing. And I said, look, I think we got a great tool for y'all, and our team introduced Lindley and her team to the media buying platform. And what they were doing, for me, it's exactly what we built this tool for, where they're going out and getting real Virginians and getting videos of them talking about issues in their communities with a big focus on access to rural healthcare, and then using our platform to serve that to a very finite, specific universe of target voters in these communities where maybe they weren't otherwise hearing from people. And so, to your point, it's a great example of how we can use these tools to be very targeted and serve authentic, genuine, targeted communications to the voters who we need to succeed. And they had great success in their efforts.
Yeah, they really did. We work really closely with Royal Ground Game. We love them. I believe that when we don't see the kind of ads that we think we ought to be seeing in the spaces that we should be seeing them, we now have the power to make that happen. I want to go back though to results, and we were talking about who we should be focused on, whether it should be, how this persuasion should work. And I want to talk about Tennessee 7 and the Afton-Bain race in terms of when you are in a gerrymandered district and you have a bunch of Republican or independents or unaffiliated. She moved those margins in incredible ways. And I wanted to know from you, because I looked at some of your tweets about this. So really, in races like that, can we win? And so we were all excited. I always say a win and the win. And she had an incredible a win, which means she moved the margin in incredible ways to get you the win. So tell me what we should expect next as we look at races like that, because some of them did turn when it was 20 points behind.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, this is a district that was Trump won by 22 points. Very difficult district. It swung in the end by, I think, 12 or 13 points towards Democrats. And so, as you say, it was a win. We didn't win the race, but to swing by that much is incredibly meaningful. Now, can we go the extra mile to win in districts like that? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that this was a race where a lot of folks came around to it late on our side in terms of the investment. There was good investment and good organizing. I think there could have been more. But in the end, a caveat that we used to have that, because we all lived through the first Trump term and we saw this special election overperformance. And I think for a lot of us, there was a frustration where we'd see these big Democratic overperformances in special elections, but then we get to the general election and we wouldn't see the same sort of swing. We'd see a swing, but not nearly what we were seeing in the special elections. And the story that we were told, which by the way, I think was accurate at the time, was, well, these special elections are lower turnout elections. So, these Republican voters who are generally just organized around Donald Trump, that's really the only Republican who they care about, they won't come out in these special elections, but they will come out in these November elections. And so that's why you're not seeing as big of a swing. That's not the case in what we're seeing this year, whether we're talking about the November elections or this special election in Tennessee 7 earlier this month. Turnout in that district fell less than 1,000 votes short of the total turnout in that district in the last midterm election, meaning the 2022 election. Wow. This was massive record-setting turnout for a special election. And so it wasn't like Republicans just stayed home and therefore, when we look at the outlook for next year in districts like this, we say, oh, that 12 or 13 point swing isn't meaningful. It's incredibly meaningful because Republicans did come out. But to your point, many of them voted for the Democratic candidate. In New Jersey, in that governor's race, turnout increased by 33% over the previous gubernatorial election. The Republican candidate, who was the same guy who ran 4 years earlier and lost by only about 4 points, he actually won more votes than he did in the previous election, but he lost by a margin swing that was a 10-point margin swing against Republicans. So Republicans came out, but we as Democrats just did a better job getting our message out there. Great candidate. We got much better Democratic turnout. Democratic turnout in New Jersey increased by 14 points, and we had a huge swing of independent voters. So this is all very meaningful, where the caveats we used to have to add going back to 2017, 2018, 2019, those don't apply now. These special election swings are very meaningful. So, to get back to your question, yeah, it is now plus 22, I think, would represent like a very far outward bound, but something that's not impossible. And frankly, for Democrats to look back and say that these elections were successful and going into the midterms, we don't need to be winning plus 22 Trump districts. To be clear, if we saw a 10-point swing towards Democrats in this election relative to the last election, we'd have one of the biggest blue wave elections we've seen.
So my final question is this. When the thing we have to sort of remember is that we are in a different environment than we've ever been in. As the Republican policies or the MAGA policies that we're seeing are horrendous. And people, quite frankly, when you talk about being in a good mood, you should be kind of terrified, hair on fire with some of the things that we're seeing. So the ability to be able to tell those stories, because I do get a little bit dissuaded when I look and someone will say, oh, Trump is at a 37% approval. But then if you look at Republicans, like 70% of them are still okay with his policies. And so I wanted to ask you about that kind of messaging, because we talked about that before, in that, yeah, you have to tell the story of the vision, but you also have to tell people where the monsters are and what kinds of things are happening and what the implications are to them. And you're talking about us having a late start in terms of talking about the monsters. So can you just give us a little bit about, as we're thinking about what we're going to do in 26, how we should be thinking about those messages and how we talk about them?
Yeah, thanks for that question, because it's so important. And again, I think this is one of another example, one of these false choices that we've been presented with, where it's like there's been this debate within the Democratic Party. Well, should we be talking about these economic issues and healthcare and inflation, or should we be going out there and making it clear how Trump is an authoritarian and is doing incredible damage to this country? And the reality is, and when you look at what these Democratic successes were founded upon, were based upon last month, it was doing both quite effectively, because they are all part and parcel of the same thing. And so, when I dig into the data from the election from last month, one of the things that jumped out at me from the exit polls in New Jersey, Virginia, was they asked a question about President Trump's immigration policy. And there were three options. You could either say you think it's gone too far, you could say you think it's about right, or it didn't go far enough, which is wild to believe that anyone could actually believe that at this moment, but some people did. The good news is, in both New Jersey and Virginia, a majority of voters took the first option. They said that this policy has gone too far. There is no question that you could have asked an individual before this election that would have better predicted how they were going to vote than this specific question. If you answered the first way, over 90% have answered that way, voted for the Democratic candidates. And then it was over 90% of the people who took option B or option C, either said the policy should stay the same or it should go even more extreme. 90% of them voted for the Republicans. And so, to get back to your question, remember the debate we were having within our party when Senator Chris Van Hollen went to Central America to visit Abrego Garcia in prison. Mm-hmm. And there were people in our party saying, we shouldn't be talking about this. This is a distraction. Let's talk about economic issues. Don't take the bait. Well, Abrego Garcia now, who has been freed in Maryland, and obviously not the end of the road for him, but thank goodness that we lifted our voices, that we fought, and that we didn't take the bait to say it's one or the other. And so, to your point, yeah, we've got to do it all. We have to continue to remind people that what Trump is doing is awful, evil, and destructive.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah.
A present.
We can do both.
Christmas present. I will be sending Tom. You will get an ornament for your tree, flipping Virginia blue.
I just got our tree this morning.
Yes, we'll send it. It means a lot just this whole year. We want to make sure we say just thank you for your time and what you guys are doing at Target Smart and Terra Group. It's just immense. So thank you very much.
Ho, ho, ho! Ho, ho, ho!
Yes, ho, ho, ho. Way to go. I do want to get to the sassy grannies, because it's important just to say also the gratitude about Stair Calhoun, who's been our ambassador of Buzz and does a lot for the show and marketing. And so I want to celebrate all the women out there and men doing everything democracy. But some people find their place in different places. And now when we feature the Raging Grannies on the show, let's get it queued up, Dennis. We some women got ready and they decided to form their own singing group. So let's listen to a little bit of the sassy Raging Grannies. There they are. Look how good they are. Oh, yeah, I love it. So, and talking about a raging, wonderful person, sassy David Pepper is here. Let's bring David Pepper up. If you don't know David Pepper, well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him because we met you when you wrote your book, Laboratories of Autocracy, that whole background of like how we got here, this sort of slow stealing of power by the states, and your new book, The Playbook, Saving Democracy, a lawyer, a writer, and you also write really great nonfiction, David. How the heck are you?
I'm great. How are you guys doing? What a great call.
I
Always
know,
have
and
fun with you guys.
I was just up in Ohio and I went there for Thanksgiving, and it was so funny packing. I threw my boots in, everything in the back with that lake effect snow at 8 inches of snow. I think even Columbus got some snow, right?
Yeah. We got snow on the ground in Cincinnati right now. Yeah, we've had a very snowy couple weeks.
Yes, well, I know. And watching the Buckeyes, it's just always great to see. But let's get to why people are here. A little Christmas on about your naughty and nice list. Why don't we just start with your naughty and nice list? What do you got for us? There is some naughtiness going on people need to know about, and then we can get to some nice things that are happening if you want to frame it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a very good mood because of my nice list, but I guess I'll start by saying, the naughty side is that Ohio once again really badly gerrymandered our maps. Now, I think some of our candidates can overcome them, but when we're seeing this great resistance in other parts of the country, unfortunately here, Republicans just do what they're told, and they continue to draw in our state these horribly gerrymandered maps, including splitting up Cincinnati and Hamilton County in a way that we had sort of liberated ourselves from. So that's the naughty. But the nice is, thank you, Virginia. You showed the way about running everywhere. I just saw that Texas is now running everywhere. They are not having a single uncontested race in Texas. Just a few years ago, Texas had like almost 40% uncontested. So thank you for that. The other incredibly nice, and you played it earlier, the fight that we just saw in Indiana was historic. To have a 40-10 Republican Democratic Senate reject Donald Trump, and we apologize on behalf of all of Ohio for J.D. Vance, but to have that body reject Trump is a historic win, and to have 300,000 Missourians show up to put that one on the ballot also. So there's a whole lot of nice as we head into the Christmas season. Some incredible fights for democracy, not where it's easy, but in places that it's very, very hard. It's really making me feel good about 26.
Yeah, and you talked
Ho,
about that.
ho, ho!
Let's talk about that, where the fight starts in all 50 states. And I think what we have seen is when we ignore the states, it's at our peril. Now, so
Yeah.
let's talk about what that fight looks like according to you. And then also the differences, like why Indiana Republicans had some ability to stand up and why Ohio still is it corruption? I know Mike Pence works the phones a lot. What are you seeing? Is there any movement in Ohio where you see there's just no accountability? They just don't care, or what?
There were some officials that we had a similar fight, remember, in 23 when they tried to ruin our direct democracy.
Yes.
And we did have some Republicans who, on principle, said no. Maureen O'Connor, the former Supreme Court Chief Justice, the former Attorney General Betty Montgomery. And I think one lesson is, and then that some people this may be out of their comfort zone, when Republicans are willing to do the right thing for democracy, work with them. In a state like Indiana, unless Republicans had done what they did, the Democrats did an incredible job. The activists were protesting every day from the moment J.D. Vance showed up. But it was also Republicans, including the former governor, Mitch Daniels, including Mike Pence, who, good for them, were calling Republicans nonstop and saying, don't do this. This isn't who we are. That was really important. And I think those moments, especially in more red states where you can find those coalitions, it is really important they work together. We saw that happen in Ohio a couple of years ago, and that is what happened in Indiana, to their great credit. And you all know this. These people were facing threats of violence. Donald Trump threatened that he would stop funding Indiana roads, all of it. And like we've asked people to do for years, they didn't get bullied by this. They stood up and they were more resistant. I think Donald Trump cost Republican votes for his map because they were like, wait a second, we don't need DC insiders telling us what to do here. And we certainly aren't going to reward threats and bullying. I think he actually cost Republican votes by taking that. And that's what we need to have every part of this country. No more bullying. And if someone threatens violence, you double down on resisting. You can never reward that kind of tone.
Well, I do think it's one of those things when it happens to people directly, and maybe some Republicans are finally seeing it. Maybe they are able to ignore it. But what we do know is when it happens to them, even when these healthcare rates are going to go up, this is happening to everybody. There's no partisan side of this. So you will, I think, see, and I think because Trump is weak, we are going to see a little bit more resistance to that, right?
Yeah.
So in the sense of, I wanted to give a shout out to the mad voters in Indiana.
Yes.
And could you talk about them real quick? Because I think this is, when we talk about a playbook with Leah Greenberg from Indivisible being here, I think it's when we build these coalitions, sometimes we don't know what we're going to do with them at later or what they're going to be good for. But the mad voter story, a little bit, if you want to talk about that, I think you had a call this morning on that with Amy. Well, I know Amy Courtney is the head of that group.
Yeah. So it's really important. This also happened in Ohio. What do these state houses want? They want no one to pay attention. They want to sneak this stuff through. And what Mad Voters and other grassroots groups did, and I think Common Cause also did, was from the moment J.D. Vance showed up, they started protesting. And that put everyone on the state on notice that, hey, this isn't normal. This whole idea of rigging Indiana because Donald Trump is demanding it, there's something wrong with that. And so the media starts covering early, and it shapes the debate. So the entire way through, that early protest and the fact that it never ended, actually the map that Trump wanted was always underwater. It was always supported by the whole rigging process. Somewhere in the mid-30s of Indiana, of Hoosiers wanted it, and somewhere around the mid-50s up to 60% opposed it. And I think the early grassroots activism by those groups made a huge difference in showing and highlighting at the highest levels and across the entire state that this was not what you want. And I think that the fact that it was unpopular the whole way through made a difference. And it wouldn't have been that. They want these things to be low key. They don't, because they're used to no one watching state houses. That's why I wrote these books, to pay attention. And the groups that shine a light on it do everyone a service. And that's why, that group, Mad Voters, groups like that in other states, it's so important that they be out there because it basically interrupts what would otherwise be sort of a quiet civil destruction of democracy.
Right. I think that coalition's formed to work on legislative tracker, then becomes an activist tool, which is amazing. So to kind of just end up today to talk about, now that you know where we are now, back from 2010 to where we are, and just some takeaways from what we should be looking at, doing. I know Mark Elias have talked about this, when we really need to pay attention to the voting and democracy constantly, like every day almost. So what would advise some things, some takeaways that people in this room, when you look at democracy, maybe some ideas that you have right now that we could continue to do and do together?
Sure. So the first thing is beyond Virginia, but you guys, I was bragging about you all fall because I wanted the case study to bear out, and it did. Any state we're in, just no more uncontested races, just unacceptable. The new business as usual is a better one than letting these races. So just like Texas did, if you're in a state anywhere, your personal mission should be wherever you are. If there's someone who looks like they may be uncontested, run yourself or get your most impressive friend and get him running. Number
Right.
two, think about how John Lewis fought the battle for democracy. Do you think he only got engaged in the final month of an election year? No. There are so many things we could all, one of the most important ways they attack democracy, and one of the most important ways we've protected it, is nonstop registration of voters. They're trying to make it harder because they
Yes.
know how important it is. So in January, February, March, once you've recruited these candidates, because deadlines are coming up, but it's a little quieter when it comes to campaigning, think about all the ways in your life, the nonprofits you volunteer for or work for, your job, your alumni group, whatever it is. Do you know the mayor of a city? Because the mayor of a city, every outward facing part of City Hall should be registering those they serve. So think about all the ways between January through, summer, we could be registering voters, not just through your Democratic group, but
Right.
through all the other things you do that often will be interacting more
Great
with
idea.
those who've been purged. So that's another big one. Organize precincts. Get the precinct organizing operation going in January. Don't wait till the summer. If
Yes.
your precinct isn't being organized by anyone, change that. Either do it yourself or tell the precinct committee person, whatever they're calling your state, hey, I want to help you organize this precinct. We don't seem to be organizing very well. That's how we'll do what Tom says. That's how we turn out our votes. So those are some basic
Those are
steps
great.
that we could all be taking.
Well, anybody that does that poll work, I can tell you that I would say to you, the most important place we could be is at the polling places on these election days, and voter intimidation or just voter greeting. And this is the way when people come, then we get them involved. We have really great groups that do do you want to join our newsletter? Not just say, here's your ballot, but engage with our own voters. So David, I want to wish you just the happiest of holidays and everything good coming your way, friend. Just always great to see you. And I hope you can stick around a little bit and you can just hang in with
Sure.
us. That would be great. And everybody, just in the sense of your books, we did put some of that list in there. Yay! Okay, so what I'd like to do before I get to Rachel Bidikofer, our last guest that's going to really bring it home for us for our Ho 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 show, is make sure that we show a video about us. Let's highlight our year in review. Carrie Short made a wonderful video, and warm up your coffee, watch a video about us, and also become a patron. We're going to do some spins after the video, and you'll be want to join us to be a patron, and it'll be great to just have people in the community. It's just so important. So let's cue up that video. Does that sound good, Dennis? Or do we want to do the spins first? I may have got it backwards, but go ahead. Let's go.
What we have claimed it to be, not ever. And it never will be unless all of us, those who are conservative, those who are liberal, those who are progressive, stand up and talk about it. You treat me mean. Oh, you treat me cruel. Jane the fool.
All right. Hey, that's us. What a year in review. And thank you to our patrons. Let's do some spins of the wheel. And then we're going to get Rachel Bidikofer up. So if what you'll get, we're going to do a spin. And if you're a patron, you're in this contest. Let's spin and see who the winner is. Let's go. And you're going to have to announce it, Robin, because it's so little. Thank you for our patrons. Who's the winner of A Link to the Boutique?
Heather Young. Is Heather
Yay!
Young?
Heather Young, we're making a note of that. Let's do another spin. And again, it's really fun. You get a weekly special write-up and backgrounds from us, and you'll get a special cards in the mail. And sometimes we've delivered bugs.
Susan Hartford. I know she's in the room.
She's in the room. One more spin, and then
One more. Okay, here we go.
One more. Susan, well, what a great activist. What a great friend and a supporter. Let's see. Patreon, who is it?
Julie Penfield.
Oh, yeah, Julie Penfield. All right. Thank you for that. How much fun. So I know all of us, what a year, and there's no better way to end it with a badass ho, ho, ho girl that we just are excited to have in the room, Rachel Bidikofer, Dr. Bidikofer to you, political scientist, analyst, strategist, election forecaster, and look at you, so bright and cheery and
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
So how are you? Let's go naughty and nice. Let's just go with it. Give us what you're thinking about.
I heard there was a hoe gathering here, a ho gathering. So
all the hoes, yep.
You know, hopefully you guys will let me in to the hoe gathering.
Yeah, you're in.
Oh man, hey, you know what? I think you guys all know the naughty list, right? I mean, it's, right? So how do you pick one thing? I would pick it in totality, like our 50% descent into authoritarianism over the first year of Trump.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And then for my happy stuff, it's, in party, out party fundamentals are back. Suddenly everyone likes me because I can tell them Democrats are winning, right? And it's great, and I'm looking forward. I mean, I don't know if you've been doing the show, but we just leaked out some RNC audio of the RNC chair talking to Trump about how the midterms are going to be a bloodbath. And they know it. And we have it on audio.
Let's put that on the nice list. So tell us stuff that we may not know. So that I didn't see that.
It just came out today. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're talking about the midterms are going to be a bloodbath. Now, when we talk about rigging the election, what David Pepper and different people have been talking about for years, they're doing it out in the open. When we're talking about asking for votes in Georgia back in 2020, and then now, the state to state stuff, looking for state materials, suing them because they want the voter rolls. Like, we're making sure that we're paying attention to all that. So in your mind, like, as what you see with happening with voters, obviously there's a turn. And so talk a little bit about what you're seeing in your world when you wrote that last article, oops, we did it again. And also you again have said this is going to be a blowout. Talk about what you're thinking about, and then maybe what we should be preparing for, or thinking how we should think about this election maybe differently than some people are thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, Tom kind of touched on this a little bit, right? Like this, was it mobilization and persuasion? Well, it's both, guys, okay?
Yeah,
and what I mean by in-party, out-party fundamentals is, like, it means this. If Kamala Harris did everything the exact same, but but Donald Trump had been in office and she was the outside challenger, she would have won the race because she would have been in the out party.
Right.
And even amongst good good people like Barack Obama or even a George W. Bush, who were like, sane-ish Republicans, like even under those kinds of people, I lost my train of thought on that. I don't know.
No, I know what you're saying is that out party, in party thing. And
yes, right.
When you look at, and you said Virginia, and New Jersey, and you really you were forecasting that right away. And I saw you sitting over there going, yeah, I told you all. Because what your fundamentals are really have been speaking to what's happening in the country. And a lot of people haven't been taking that in account, right? So do you want to talk about that a little bit and how that works? And I talked to a voter the other day and I said, voting's kind of emotional. They're like, no, I don't want to hear that. I go, well, it is, and there's a rhyme and reason. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, so what's happening now is what made me first get onto the national stage when I put out my 2018 forecast in June and said the Democrats are going to gain like 40 seats in the House, which they did, right? So it's that fundamental. When Trump won re-election in 2024, it was always going to be the case. I mean, especially because it's Donald Trump. That was my point about George Bush and Barack Obama. Like they do things and there's a reaction in the opposition party. What Donald Trump does is so much worse than any of those like things, right? And that was bad in the first term. It's even worse here in the second term. And we already see that in the data. We see that 25% of independents support Donald Trump right now, pure independents, okay? That's really remarkable in a year to do. And it would have happened with any Republican president. Democrats would have an electoral advantage in the 26 midterms, right? But because it's Donald Trump and because he single-handedly enacted this tariff policy and killed the economy, and his brand, fair or not, and it was definitely not fair, was that he was good on the economy. That's what everyone, I tell people in the book, my Uber driver, all he knows about Donald Trump is that he's a good businessman. Yes, that's what he knows, a good businessman. He doesn't know about any of the other stuff, right? So, getting people to appreciate like the carpe diem-ness of this moment. And then, as we came into election night, last couple of weeks, I'm sure you guys noticed, the polls are so tight in Jersey. And I'm like, dude, no, it's going to be like double digits. And it ended up being double digits in both, right? And of course, you guys increased that majority. So 26 is in that position. I'm so excited that Virginia Democrats have undone the fair map stuff, which I never wanted because it was unilateral. And I was like, dude, we can't solve gerrymandering on our side and let them just gerrymander the hell out of the map on their states. We're never going to, they wouldn't even control Congress right now if we didn't have these fair maps. Okay. To put that into perspective. Yeah. They would not have a House majority right now today if Virginia had the map that they're going to put in now. Right.
I mean, I think those fundamentals too, like how everything goes together, like being able, how people will vote, but making sure people can vote, making sure they have access, all that stuff is so important. We work at all angles, but in the sense that let's talk a little bit about these independent voters. I'm kind of interested in, do you see, like, when you look at labeling voters, and we talked about this years ago, and it feels like to me, we're in the middle of party transformation and people where they identify. So when you're, as a scientist, when you're looking at this, is there any different, like, how do you look at it the same now, or people, so give me that skinny on when
Sure. That's a great question, Catherine, because like in political science literature, we spend quite a lot in political behavior anyway, a lot of focus on the Southern realignment. The Republican Party used to not exist in the South, okay? And you couldn't even find a Republican in the South. And now, of course, the South is full of Republicans, but we're talking about the same people, white conservatives, right? Obviously, a younger generation. So like that, I think that was widely recognized. And then what I've added to that in my own, research in life is that actually this is always true. The electorate is always in motion. We thought of it as stagnant, but if we look back in history, it's always doing this. So when you say like, we're still in the realignment, yes, we're still in a realignment. And I don't expect that it's going to end anytime soon. In fact, because of Donald Trump doing what he betrayed, that's the word that you want in all your shit. Betrayed people on prices. He told them, I'm going to lower prices on day one. And then he did tariffs that everyone told him not to do. And now everything's expensive, right? And what we can see organically is that about 50% of the electorate gets that. They understand. Trump broke the economy with tariffs and now things are expensive, right? But like, if we focus on that, as Tom was saying, doing both, attacking Trump, but also on the issue of affordability and healthcare, not, hey, it's fine to say, hey, we're going to do this stuff, right? But
Right.
we have to tell them who is fucking them over. The hero, villain, you call them the monsters, right?
Yeah,
Hero,
that's
villain.
Fennell. Come on
Must
in,
have a
Fennell.
hero, must have a villain in every message, and the word betrayal is the one that centers it, right? So, the point is, I go around the party, and my job is to tell you what you need to know, not what you want to hear, right?
Let's do it.
I know I've shown you guys this data, but I do it on my talks when I go to Missouri Dems or whatever. And it shows that the general electorate coming out of 2024, so, however many $billion was spent on ads, the only thing that the electorate in the swing states knew about us is that we support gay rights. That was it. That was the only issue that they could clearly articulate belonged to us. Okay. And it was also, of course, the least important issue in all of the issues on the list. Okay. Because we're talking about a subset of the population. So, and in conjunction with that, I've been showing the graph of which party represents the working class, which has been tracked for decades. Okay.
Right.
And it used to be Democrats, obviously, because the left is the party of working people. Everyone knows that. It's like that in every country in the world, right? Right? Well, over time, and despite policy deliverables, despite the ACA, which was a working class directed program, right? Over the decades, just could decline, nothing but decline, okay? And now people were more likely in this election to say that Republicans stand for the working class, right? That's the problem that we're working on fixing. And that's why affordability is important to run on, but not just in and of itself. And I think the Spanberger campaign eventually got there. And I'm sure it's their standard model, positive, close with negative or whatever. But eventually they got to the point in Jersey and in Virginia where they were not just running on affordability, but they were attacking Trump and the Republicans on it, right? That's the most important part, right?
Yeah, Fennell wants it now.
So strategically, we want to make sure that when people are pissed off about prices, they know who to blame, okay? And they need to be told who to blame in our messaging.
Yes. Rachel. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Okay, yes, this is extra exciting for me too. So this is what I want to get at in terms of, how we get at this. How did all these folks who used to be Democrats, the working class, now, in my view, is a different working class? Because when I hear working class, I just think white people. It's because I think that's who Trump is talking to. But okay, so here's my question. 2008 was the last time that we had a 60 majority in the Senate. We haven't had one since then. Nobody has, I don't think. It was Barack Obama, and we passed the Affordable Care Act. How do we get back there again?
That was the end of the Southern Dixiecrats, okay? So like that realignment that I alluded to a few minutes ago, that started in the South in the 60s and 50s with VRA and the Voting Rights Act passing. That tail end of it was 2010, 2012, and then the very last exited stage left in 2014, all pushed out by the Republicans coming after our base, the working class, and branding us as extremist and communist, right? So, the important thing about, I would say, the important thing about understanding how that realignment could go is, again, as you just pointed out, Fennell, it's not when I say working class, if I mean white working class people, I'll say the word white, because working class people today in America are very diverse, right? But of all of them, I mean, it started with the white working class, but what the last couple cycles showed us was they were siphoning off working class voters of color from us. Okay, so it's a class, economic, classification now for working class people, and we can get them back if we go and reverse engineer what Republicans did to us and shit on their brand, right? And this is the best kickoff we could ask for. Trump betrayed you on the Epstein files. He's betrayed you now on Venezuela, right? Because by next year, we're going to be in a land war in Venezuela. I mean, it just seems obvious to me. I mean, he said they were looking at land strikes in a press conference, right? So anyway, You know, you got the betrayal on Epstein, the betrayal on prices, the betrayal on oil, and there's even a subset of, believe it or not, of Republicans, and it's not small, who are betrayed on immigration because they expected him to really deport 10 million people in a year.
Oh, God.
And they're mad because he's not deporting enough people. Yeah, seriously, right? So there's just so much opportunity to go in and be like, these fucking people, man, they speak out of both sides of their mouths, and
Right.
they're stealing your money, right? And so I think it's real potential to go in, not just we have to kill the slide. Okay, we can't keep sliding in that category. And that's why we can't be just the party of gay rights, okay? Even though no matter how much we care about the issue of gay rights, we can't just be
Right.
that party, right? We have to have an economic brand, and that brand, in my opinion, needs to tell the story of what happened to the American middle class. Because what happened to the American middle class was the Republican Party stealing all their money, right? With tax cuts for
Right.
the rich and Reaganomics. And so, you know, ideally, we would have a broader conversation that brings in the brand of the Democratic Party, because you are selling the D and the R. And since we're in the out party fundamentals that favor us, independence, that persuasion pool is going to break in favor of us, right? And what we want to do now is increase the size of that margin. So let's just say the fundamentals bias 55-45, okay, on independent vote choice in the swing race. Well, if we sit there and juice that with negative partisanship persuasion, not, you know, I'm good and I'm going to get you healthcare and I'm going to protect, just generic sounding shit that no one, right? If we're there and we're pounding them, then we could increase that margin of how we know indies are going to break, because we know they're going to, I know anyway, that they're going to break in our favor. And that size is what I want to wedge. I want to hit that with napalm and accelerant and make that margin size. And that accelerant, by the way, is double dipping for me, because it's also going to push that strong turnout of the Democratic base, right? So that's, you know, we have to do that. And this cycle is, you know, the cycle to begin to end the GOP's dominance of being good on the economy.
So if I just my final question, and then I'll let Carrie jump in. The reason that I'm so harping on that is because if we don't do something with the Supreme Court, it's hard for other stuff to matter ultimately in the end. And I guess unless something fundamentally changes, you only get to do that with the 60 people in the Senate where you can actually do that. So I think that's what I'm thinking is that ultimately that has to be our goal until something changes. Is it
I mean, that should be the goal.
Yeah.
And we have this article that you gave to Tom, right? I read that article too, Fidel. I'm so glad you have that. And maybe you should send it to me because I lost it into the spaces. But like we should, I mean, that shit should be happening. Like it's not like, oh, that's a good idea. Like that should be going, right? And so, you know, we have to get into that position if we ever want to get anything done, right? But like fretting about, I think it's useless to fret about the inevitability of the court not being on your side. It's useless to fret about the inevitability of the GOP claiming the vote fraud and not wanting to certify. Like we can't, those are variables that we have no control over. And if you think about them too oppressively, then they become, you know, they paralyze you, right? So I prefer to focus on what I can control. And what I can control is whipping some ass, right? So
getting that big old margin margin and momentum.
Because the truth is, like, we're in a situation, I mean, like 10 years ago, like control of the court was a big issue, right? And then we're talking about like, are we going to have courts?
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, like to me, like, I think like the time horizon you guys should be operating on mentally should be narrow. Okay. It should be focused on tangible, narrow, achievable things, and then let that never stuff just haunt you in your sleep like it does me. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously not going to go away. But if you focus on but, it will keep you from doing. Right. So I would say that, you know, we're in a position where it looks incredibly possible that we'll not only have a big blue wave in the House. I know that's coming. This gerrymandering shit that they've done might backfire on them in Texas, based on what we've seen.
We talk about that because I'm interested in the sense of the voters. When we talk about the Latino voters, the biggest changes we saw in Tennessee and in Florida
and Miami.
And that's what I meant, Miami, right? And I'm
Right.
thinking veterans where Carrie is. Carrie's down in a area in Virginia Beach. We have a lot of movement. What do you have to say about, I mean, independents, Latino, they're going to change. Our brand is going to be maybe more, that maybe they're going to be looking at the Democratic side. And how does that interrelate with the candidate running? And then, of course, people say it's up to only the Democratic Party can kind of like ruin this whole gift to them, these gifts that they keep giving when they start to sort of second guess being a fighter or second guess how they need to talk or how they fight, which always worries me. Are they going to go back to, we need to run somebody that's, like more centrist? Like, I don't want to even go there. I'm done with all that discussion of that, but I'm laying some stuff out there like voter ID, moving people our way, talking to those voters. It's the same stuff, right? Affordability, housing, jobs. AI is going to take out thousands of jobs coming up soon. We're going to have sort of a real collapse, I'm thinking, as well. And we, I think, as Democrats can sort of prepare people for that. And if we don't, it's sort of like the coal mining jobs. We didn't talk about the transition. I think we're going to see a really big upset. We already are seeing it where people are being fired. So I'm laying out a lot there. What do you want to grab onto, like when we're talking about all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I stay out of primary politics because I
Yeah.
need to stay. I don't want to isolate any person that I can convince to run effective strategy.
Right.
So for me, like I just want to nominate the people the voters choose, and if there's a shit ton of energy
Right.
behind someone like Mandami, there is no point in trying to blunt that. Okay, like.
Right.
Now, my goal is to make sure people understand Mandami is running in a purely Democratic race. Like the New York mayor's race is a Democratic primary, right? And therefore he has got these, fairly radical policies, and they're not deal breakers because he's only going to Democrats, right? So, they're to kind of put it, you don't want a candidate that's unelectable in the general election.
Right. And primaries are a
also-
healthy shakeout. It's a healthy shakeout. We don't let it happen enough.
Yeah, right. But so I stay out of that stuff. Let the voters decide when the general hits is where I'll hit, right? Unless there's like a known nominee or an incumbent. I don't do primary challenges, okay? Ideological primary challenges. So, that allows me to protect my ability to work with every contingent in the party because I work with the centrist, I work with the progressives, I work with everybody basically. And, the reason that negative partisanship is so great is it ends these divides and puts everybody together anyway under one nice messaging frame. So, my concern is mostly that we won't run we did not run. There's absolutely no evidence that anybody ran against Trump in 2024. Okay. The paid ads did not do that in the Senate and the House races. And, that's remains my number one focus. How do we get all the swing race candidates running negative partisanship strategy? How do we get them to understand that all their, wonderful biography and all that shit doesn't matter if they don't make a hero villain frame on their messaging? And, we don't do these changes, then we can't ever get back to 60 votes, which is what Fennell is talking about. Okay. We can never get back there again unless we can convince non-college educated people that we represent their interest, and therefore we must be focused on economic issues. However, talking about economic issues is one thing. Talking about the negative partisanship style is a completely different thing. That's the thing that we need to be doing. We did see that close out Virginia and Jersey. It's probably what pumped the margins up so high, in fact. And, I continue to be focused on that for 2026.
It definitely seemed like it was a battle of the it's motivating me to be a raging moderate, as they say from Scott Calloway. But I mean, it really didn't come out through the race here in Virginia. It was so purely moderate. And Elaine Luria is coming out, for CD2, and she is just a mainstream moderate Democrat. And we need to convince her to become a raging moderate and to channel some of the anger against Jen Kiggins, because that is real and it can be effective. But she is such a stern, experienced, cool as a cucumber leader, having been a female in the Navy, that I just don't know how we're going to get that fire under her butt, because that is what is going to motivate some of the people who
Well,
are super
here's
angry.
something you should know. I wanted to run negative partisanship strategy in Elaine's race that she lost, and I pushed them very hard, her and her husband, who is her campaign manager. And they didn't. I wanted them to run like very specific and unique for VA CD2 because it's the military district that runs through Virginia Beach, and she, of course, is Navy, and Kiggins was going to be Navy, military as well. So it was a very unique strategy that I wanted for them, very specific, using national defense and stuff that you wouldn't really run in Texas, right?
I know people are very excited about her campaign, so maybe we can get you
Yeah,
on the
I
phone
would
with
be
her.
very keen to reconnect with Elaine and talk about strategy and how to win the seat back for sure. Yeah.
So I have a question. So let me ask a question on that. So is it possible then for folks who are not part of the campaign, what do you call them when people on the outside actually run ads and things like that? What is that called?
IE, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my question is if a candidate doesn't do it, which is what I was really saying to Tom too about the new platform that he has, is because we always have ideas about what we think needs to be happening based on what we hear and see on the ground.
Right.
So I'm really interested in groups like ours being able to say, okay, here's the kind of ads that we want to run, and we run them.
Do it.
Yeah, see that. So here's a model you guys might consider. Okay. I went out to New Mexico. It's a big CD because it's New Mexico, rural western state. But new Blue CD2 is a IE. It's got two elements or whatever, but at the IE end, and it focuses just on CD2 in New Mexico.
Yep.
And they raise their own money and do their own strategy. Yeah. Yeah. You see where I'm going? I'm super keen in doing this in Arizona this cycle to basically my first vision was like 25 years ago. I'm going to come in as an IE with Straight Pack, and I'm going to basically handicap all these moderate campaigns who get shitty advice about how to run and win, right? I'll run the right shit next to them with my own budget, right? But I could not fund that project. Right. It has been proven to be a very successful model for Blue CD2. So if you want to look out, Google that and check them out. I can even put you in contact with the people who run it. But that would be a viable option in that CD2 race, would be an IE that somebody would organize, and then we would design our own shit to make sure that Kiggins gets napalmed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right, start raising some money, friends. Come on.
Well, I'm going to say this is a good.
I'm motivated.
We know those the New Mexico ladies. We've had them on. I'm impressed what they did, and when CD2 with Carrie's that has already been the candidates that ran down there supported them. They didn't win, but the purpose was to get their brand up. These are places where no one really was running at all. Like David said, run everywhere. So we have been in CD2 this past year working it hard. So we're going to work with you on CD2 some more. Let's do that. What I want to do, because I'm looking at the clock, is we're just going to close out the show and go over to the after chat. So I want you to hold on to our reins as we go across with us. You could stay with us, Rachel, and we're just going to do a little wrap up. I just want to make sure that if you guys can stay in the after chat, we may have, I don't know if David is still here, but Rachel Bidecoffer will be here. And this is such a great year with all of you. Thank you to those that have decided to be patrons. And as Rachel Bidecoffer knows, when you're doing this on your own, a little bit goes a long way to support what we do every single day to bring you content. Also, we're doing more Substack lives, so please join us in that. Make sure you subscribe to this cycle, to Pepper Perspectives. Support the people in the grassroots doing the work. We love our audience. We love bringing you this content. Thank you today to Tom Bonnier being here. Means a hell of a lot. He's a great guy. And also David Pepper, always fighting for democracy. Lee Greenberg, you can't say enough about Indivisible and all the groups in here, all the leaders. Just run this show. What we do is for the grassroots, and what Rachel has done for us, because we're grassroots, is we just elevate and support each other. And we always love that she always makes sure that she's there for us, and vice versa. So with that, Fennell and Carrie, I'll give you last words, and then anything I'm missing, and because I'll say about registering for the new show.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, I'll say Sunday Night Lives which I'm really excited about. I think they're getting pretty popular, so I'm excited about those. And I was just going to say, all of our guests today, Rachel and Tom and David and Leah, they just make us all smarter and we can be so much more effective. So I'm grateful for that.
So true. And everyone, I hope you enjoyed the wrap up video. You got to get your Wrapped from Spotify. Everyone's doing it. So get with it. We'll have that online on the Substack. You can share it with your friends. We've been having a blast in my family sharing all of our Wrapped. Even if you're boycotting Spotify, you can still do it.
Well, yeah, that's what we got to boycott it and then use it and
That's why I
boycott.
don't boycott shit. It's just too much, man.
Yeah,
And it's a lot to keep up with. It's
Yeah,
like
you
multiple
couldn't
boyfriends.
buy
I
or
just
go
can never do
anywhere
it.
if you took it really seriously. And like, I'm the kind of person that can't do anything I can't do anything half-ass, right? If I'm a football fan, I'm in there every game, right? Like, so yeah, no boycotting from me.
A lot to keep up with.
I get it. So we will be back January 9th. We're hustling some great guests for that opening show for 2026. We have the link. It's in the chat. Register right now for the new link. The old link is no longer going to work, everybody. So register for that. Spread this around. And Dennis, let's get up the credits. Make sure you follow us on YouTube and Substack, and let's see you on the other side. Oh.